discussing organic chemical technology course, and we have already discussed 5 modules of this course, and today we will be discussing the module 6 of the organic chemical technology course, and that is about the petroleum refining. That is one of the very important sector, and whatever the revolution, green revolution or the industrialization you are seeing, that is because of the petroleum refining and the product which is available for energy, for fuel or for the petrochemical. So, the coverage of the we will be discussing about the introduction of the petroleum refining, status of the petroleum refining, crude oil and natural gas, origin, occurrence, exploration, drilling and processing. This part that will be discussing very brief, and the fuel norms, what are the various changes that is taking place in the refinery. So, this is the total coverage of the lecture: introduction, status of the petroleum refining industry and global consumption pattern of the oil, historical development of the petroleum refining industry in India, what are the changes that has taken place during the last 50-60 years of the petroleum refining industry in India, type of the crude oil process in India, because we are processing here both the imported crude and the indigenous crude, and so there has been a lot of variation in the quality of crude during the last few years. Then the structure of the petroleum Indian petroleum industry, crude oil and natural gas origin, occurrence, oil and gas exploration and drilling, composition of the crude oil, types of the petroleum refining processes, changing scenario in the gasoline and diesel especially. There is a lot of the changes that has taken place in the refinery configuration just to meet the environmental standards as per the Euro norms or the Bharat norms, and the specification of the gasoline and diesel that is changing time to time looking to the environmental condition. Emerging scenario in the refining industry in India, because there has been lot of the changes, lot of the problems because of the non-availability of the crude, volatile market of the crude oil. All those factors are affecting the overall growth of the petroleum industry. We will be discussing some of the problems which we are facing. Then the consumption pattern of the petroleum products, because the various uses of the whatever the, because that is very important in case of the petroleum. Each and every drop of the oil, each and every barrel of the oil, that is very important, and if you are not utilizing properly, then overall economy of the refining, that is definitely going to be affected, and the future refining, because the concept now it is changing just to have to more value added product and to incorporate the various developments which are taking place, keeping in mind of the environment, keeping in mind of the availability of the raw materials, all those factors that will be discussing in the what will be the concept of the future refining. Let us come to the petroleum refining. Petroleum and derivatives such as asphalts have been known and used for almost 6,000 years, and there is evidence of use of asphalt building more than 6 years ago. But only thing, it was not actually known, but some oil that was available. But model petroleum refining began in 1859 with the discovery of the petroleum in Pennsylvania. This is near in New York, you can say, just side of the New Jersey, one side is Pennsylvania, another side is the New Jersey. So, this is the Pennsylvania, and subsequent commercialization of the various processes, because there is a lot of changes in the process of the refinery operation, and that will be discussing the whole refinery petroleum refinery, that is containing 8 lectures, and so the different section, what are the development we will be discussing. The exploration of the petroleum originated in latter part of the 19th century. So, for the petroleum industry is concerned, now you cannot survive, you cannot imagine a life without petroleum product. Petroleum industry is playing vital role in the industrialization and urbanization and meeting the basic needs of the mankind through supplying energy for domestic purposes, for industrial purposes, for transport sectors, and we are finding the revolution in the automobile industry because of the availability of the more and more fuel, and at the same time some of the products which are available. And as feedstock for the fertilizer, synthetic fiber industry, synthetic rubber, polymers, intermediates, explosive, agrochemicals, dyes, these are all will be discussing in much detail while discussing the module 7 and module 8 of the, where we will be discussing about the petrochemicals which are derived from the petroleum industry. Already we discussed about the some of the chemicals which can be produced through the non-petro route, because that was the on the utilization of the biomass, utilization of the ethanol, or the coal gasification from coal to chemical route. All those things we discussed, but here we will be discussing in the module 7 and module 8 about the development that has taken place because of the coming of the petroleum products. So, intermediates, explosive, agrochemicals, dyes, paints, all those things that will be discussed. Now, the world economy runs on the oil and natural gas, because any industrialized country, anywhere we cannot survive without oil and natural gas, because we are using in some other form, whether you take the LPG, you take the gasoline, you take the diesel, the whole transportation sector is depending upon the diesel, and the because that is the only alternative route now left, and the economic way of the transportation of the raw material of the various products. So, the importance of the petroleum refinery you can just imagine, because it is not only providing the fuel or the energy, but it is also providing very important role in through the various actually the raw material which is available to the fertilizer or the petrochemical industry or intermediate explosive, all those industry they are using the product produced from the petrochemical industry. This is the global oil consumption and the refining capacity global. This is the global oil consumption refining capacity, and the Asia Pacific, North America, Europe and other European Asian country, South and Central America, Middle East, Africa and total, because some it is India is also included in, here. So, this is about the global, and then the world refining capacity, the country wise, and this is the figure that we are having about the. So, from this figure you can say the US is the major share is the US, but one of the interesting thing is the although the share of other countries, it may be the America or it may be the Southeast Asia, all those are having the large refining capacity they are producing, but the basic raw material which we are producing, that is only from the Middle East and some other part of the world. So, the major supplier of the raw material are the Middle East. So, this is the structure of the Indian petroleum industry. The Indian petroleum refining sector, first part, because the refinery we must have the crude oil, and the first part is the oil and gas exploration, and here the major player is ONGC, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, Oil India, which was earlier under the Assam Oil Company when the oil and gas exploration was started in Assam, but now it is under the public sector. Reliance, JBG and other SR, all they are having now, they are playing important role in the oil and gas exploration. Refining, some of the refineries are written, but a large number of the refineries we are having, and the new refineries are coming. Then the marketing, because the refining we are having under private sector, public sector, distribution and marketing of the products. Some of the actually the organization that was developed just to marketing, IBP, you take the case of the IBP, they are not having any refining, but they are doing the marketing part. Apart from this, the Indian Oil, BPCL, HPCL, they are all having their own marketing distribution system. So, this is about the structure of the and the one of the major player in case of the gas distribution is the GAIL, which are supplying the gases which is being processed at the various part of the country through the pipeline, and that is being provided. And one of the gas pipeline which was available through the GAIL, that was the HBG pipeline. Long back it was actually they started the supplying of the natural gas to some of the fertilizer plant, and that is the your Hajira to Bijapur and Jagdishpur. That is the when the fertilizer plant based on the natural gas that was started by builders at Jagdishpur. So let us now discuss, because we will be going in detail about each and every process in the next few lectures, but it is just a summary introduction to the petroleum refining industry which we are discussing in this lecture. So all steps of the petroleum industry start from the oil exploration to the refining of the crude oil and the final marketing of the products which are producing in the refinery, because some of the raw material that is going as a fuel and others are going to petrochemical complexes for producing large amount of the one of the development which has taken place in case of the petrochemical industry, organic chemical industry, that has been the coming of the naphtha cracker and the LAB. We discussed LAB where we are using the kerosene. These were the two major development that took place, and from the cracker then it was the polymer development of the polymer industry, because of the availability of the your ethylene, propylene, all those things that came into existence, and that was only the revolution which are seeing in the petrochemical industry is only because of the coming of the number of the petroleum refined industry in India. Then we will be discussing about the properties of the crude oil, not in detail, but in the next lecture we will be discussing about the evaluation of the crude oil. Why it is important? Because the property of the crude oil varies from location to location, from one region to another region, from one country to another country, and there has been continuous variation in the quality of the crude oil to the refineries, and so that is one of the major problems. But at the same time, what we are doing, we are trying to use more and more available crude oil, whether it is heavier or the lighter or is the oil sands, whatever it in the form that the oil is from. Our objective is just to utilize these available resources to maximum limit. So petroleum refining is a process in which crude oil are refined to convert it to the usable fuel and some of the product that is being used as a feedstock also for the petrochemical. Now more heavy crude containing high TAN, high acid number and the sulfur is available, making refining process more complex, because you see because of the heavier crude you will have to go for the processing of the more heavier fraction which you are getting, and the yield of the heavier fraction that will be more because of the processing. At the same time, another problem that has been because of the use of this high TAN and the sulfur containing, high sulfur containing, or the what we call it the sour crude, that is the desulfurization process, because the earlier the desulfurization process was not there in earlier refinery, old refinery, but now that is integral part, because just to meet the environmental standards, it may be the Euro 1, Euro 2, Euro 3, and now we are going for Euro 4. Some country they have gone for the Euro 5. So like that, because our environmental standards, they are becoming more and more stringent with respect to the your emission of the sulfur compounds from the gases and other compounds. Just like you take the case of the benzene reduction, continuous reduction in the benzene emission standards are being implemented. So this is a typical refinery and the product, and this is just a summary, and this of the refining process we will be discussing again in detail, but it is the crude oil which we are getting. So one more step is there here before the crude oil which is coming to the refinery, the processing of the crude oil after the drilling. So, the processing of the crude oil for separation of the gases, separation of the CO2, separation of the sour gases, that is being done at the site, so that during the supply of the crude oil or during the supply of the natural gas, these contaminants are eliminated. So, even desalting process, pre-treatment of the crude oil, that is being done at the site also before it. So, the oil gas explosion drilling, that is also one of the very important, that is what we call it the upstream of the refinery, and this is we are discussing downstream, and the further downstream is the processing of the use of the various petroleum product. So, the crude oil that is going to the atmospheric vacuum distillation column, and from the atmospheric distillation column we are getting the various products, the lighter products, it may be the some of the product that will go for the hydrogen generation, because the hydrogen, use of the hydrogen in all many of the processes we are using hydro processes, hydro treatment, in the reforming and many of other hydrocracking, in all the process we are using hydrogen in the refinery, and so the use of the again the use of the hydrogen that is increasing because of the coming of the more and more heavier crudes. So, this is the production of the hydrogen, that is integral part, but still that is, you see the many of the processes they are generating oxygen during the, whether it may be the distillation or the other process, it may be catalytic reforming or the FCC, and the hydrogen management, that has become a very important in case of the petroleum refining industry, and all the refineries they are working how to best utilize the hydrogen which is available in the various gas stream of the refinery. So, that was about the hydrogen usage and the why the hydrogen that is important, and it has been shown as a product here, and there actually what we are doing, we are having the steam reforming of the naphtha, but earlier we discussed about the petcoke gasification, because some of the mills they are going, refineries they are going for the petcoke gasification, because the petcoke that is being produced in the refinery operation, and that petcoke till now that is being used as a fuel in the some of the mills, especially the cement mills they are using, and so now all the refineries they are working to utilize that petcoke for hydrogen production and refining, that is coming on. And then comes the rest of the processes, you see we are having the separation process, another is your further processing of the products which you are getting from the atmospheric and your this vacuum distillation column. So, waste breaker, that is for the heavy residues you are getting, and bitumen blowing unit, these are the from the video, the products which are getting, they are heavier, they have to further process, because our objective is just to utilize maximum amount of the crude oil, every barrel, every drop of the oil is important. And now the other process which we are doing, one is the continuous catalytic reforming or the catalytic reforming, because you see we started with the thermal cracking, and then it was the fixed bed cracking, phase bed cracking to FCC to now many of the refineries they are having the FCC and hydrocracker both. Catalytic reforming, because in various processes of the refinery, whether it is the stator naphtha or the cracked naphtha, maybe from the FCC, from the hydrocracker or from the thermal cracking units, these some of the naphtha, because if you are having the cut below 80 or the higher oxygen number naphtha, it is okay, that can go to the directly stator gasoline, that what we call it, so that will go to the gasoline pool. But rest of the naphtha is a major portion of the naphtha which is having very low octane number, so that is not suitable for use as a gasoline part. So, that has to be further processed. So, this is the process which we are using the catalytic reforming, and we will be discussing in detail about the catalytic reforming, hydrocracker, what are the various parameters, thermal cracking, all those things that will be here. Only I am saying what are the product that we are using. So, the LPG that is going for your domestic use, kerosene and diesel, the fuel for the jet fuels, naphtha that is going as for the gasoline. So, gasoline that may be your state run which you are directly getting from the atmospheric column, or the cracked gasoline which is having the higher octane number. It may be the hydrocracker or the FCC, because here only I have shown the hydrocracker, but FCC and hydrocracker now it has become a integral part of the many of the refinery. So, the kerosene, diesel again you see the from the we are getting is diesel that may be state run or the cracked from the cracking process that we may get a fraction. So, that diesel for the because the availability of the diesel, and why the importance of the middle distillate is there, because huge amount of these products are the especially the diesel we are using the transportation sector. This is the alternative to the railway transport, and so this is the reason why the importance of the diesel, but the in all the cases we are having the whether it is kerosene, LPG or the gasoline, we are having the desulfurization process just to meet the environmental. Sulfur recovery, that is again the integral part of the refinery, because the lot of the sulfur compounds are emitted, that sulfur that and compounds they are converted to more useful product, means the sulfur, and that sulfur that can be used in the chemical process industry. So, this is the actually if you see the various products which we are getting, that is the octane number. You see the octane number requirement that has changed like anything, because the initial stage the requirement the octane number that was low, but with the new breed of the your vehicles, the requirement of the octane number that has increased. We are getting the LPG, naphtha, motor spirit, or what we call it the gasoline or the petrol, because the petrol is not actually we are producing as such. This is the actually the commercial name of the gasoline, and the blend of that is blended gasoline or reformulated gasoline, where we are adding also the various additive, antioxidants, all those things that is being added, and finally the product which you are getting, that is the petrol, or the sometimes earlier it was also called the motor spirit, aviation turbine fuel that we are using, kerosene, still huge amount of the kerosene that is being used for the illumination purpose, especially in the rural area, because of the electricity is not available 24 hours. So, people are using lot of the kerosene for illumination purposes as a fuel, and then the your heavy petroleum stock like the bitumen that we are using for in the making of the road. And so, these are the some of the products which are directly that is being used. Others are just like you take the case of the naphtha or the kerosene, that is going to the petrochemical complexes, where we are using the naphtha for the, it will go for naphtha cracking, and kerosene for separation of the paraffin for making. So, these products are being, even one of the products which is not shown here, we are also getting the wax from the petroleum. So, we call it the petroleum wax, that is only where we are processing more paraffinic crude, just like Assam Oil Company, Digboi, they are having the your wax unit, and so they are producing from very beginning they have been producing the wax. So, if the more paraffinic, more wax content will be there. This is the growth of the Indian petroleum industry. You see that was not, it is not very old, it is the last 200 years. You can see whatever the development that was the mostly we started in 19th century. So, it is 150 years of the development, you can say most, and even the discovery of the oil, that was the first we discovered the oil at the Narongpung, and then it was the Digboi where the oil production started, and even the name of the Digboi, that Dig means the while moving in the forest, because it was ruled at that time by the Britishers, they found that the oil is there on the leg of the elephant, and so he started crying dig boy dig, and so the name to Digboi, and so the oil production, even the first refinery in India, that was started at Digboi, and lot of the crude oil and the natural gas that available in this part of the country in Assam. Right were granted to Assam Oil Company in 1893, 1890 Digboy refinery was commissioned with the 500 mere 500. You can see the even still that is the lowest capacity plant we are having in the Assam, around 0.6 million tons capacity. Even that is after the increase of the capacity, after the modernization of the plant. This is the and now we cannot imagine a refinery with this capacity. Then it was the Burma oil, BOC, which I was saying, they started oil exploration in India, and that was part of the same Assam Oil Company, Burma Oil Company. Crude oil production in 1931, that was very less, and 1947 to 57, lot of the development in oil exploration. The multinational oil company Burma's LSO set up 2 refineries at the Mumbai, and you see we are earlier it was the first the Assam Oil Company, and then the Burma Shell they started, now the BPCL, and the another was the Hindustan Petroleum by the SO. So that is the now Hindustan Petroleum. So these were the some of the earlier refinery which was started. And exploration of the oil in the Nahar Katia and the Moran. This is the place near your Dibrugarh, where the again one large cracker plant is coming, because lot of the gas is available, and that gas still it was not being utilized. And you can just see how because of the political reason, there was no cracker plant, no petrochemical complex except Assam Petrochemical, where they are using the gas, natural gas for making of the methanol. Another unit that was started during the initially stated, that was the Namru fertilizer, where they are using they are making the fertilizer. So this is the another the development that was there. This all in Assam, and when in Tripura also the oil and gas that was found, discovery of the oil in large quantity at Bombay High. That was actually the change which took place, and the offshore drilling that was started, and then the name of the IOBL which was there, it became part of the IOCL. Discovery of the oil and gas in the offshore area of the various places in the, that is the Panna field, base field, Mumbai offshore, Hira, Ratna, all those things that is there in the Maharashtra. Oil and gas reserve discovered at the Gandhar and Dahej. This is the in Gujarat, where we are having the petrochemical complex by Reliance. Earlier it was the IPCL, now we are going to have the one petrochemical complex by ONGC also there, because lot of the gas is available. Oil and gas found in the Krishna Kaveri, that was the every time there is dispute of the Reliance, and so that was the actually the although it was started earlier by the ONGC, and then also the Reliance they discovered the gas in this region, and the real actually the change in the oil and especially the natural gas, that was by the availability of the gas in this region. And then this was also oil 1995 in Kachar and the Nagaland area. 1954 Indian oil exploration with the help of the Russian geologists. 1956 formation of the Oil and Natural Gas Commission, public sector Indian refineries that came into oil field. Oil India, that was the joint sector. Earlier it was under the Assam Oil Company. So 1963 first public sector refinery started at Guwahati, because there is pipeline where the crude oil that is being supplied from Assam, Naharkatia, Duliajan to Guwahati, and it was also being supplied to the Barauni refinery. Earlier they were using all the Assam crude. So these two refinery came, and the later it was the Bogaigaon refinery and petrochemicals, and as per Rajiv Gandhi Assamika, that was the Numaligarh refinery that was started in Assam. So this is about the Indian Oil Company, Indian Oil Company merged, which I told you, the IRL. Engineers India 1965, that was started, and you see the Engineers India, they have actually played a very important role in the development of the, especially the petroleum refining and the petrochemical, although they are also involved in the fertilizer sector. But these are the three major sectors where the role of the, and that is under public sector, and Engineers India, they have played important role in erection, commissioning, some R&D center is also there of the IEL, and they did lot of the research work in the extraction, development of the some catalyst, development of the some of the processes in collaboration with the Assam Oil Indian Oil Corporation R&D division, Faridabad. So this was the 1998 that the Assam Oil Company became the Indian Oil, and now the Indian Oil and the Assam Oil earlier used to be named as Assam Oil Company, now it is IOCL, Indian Oil Corporation. First joint sector that was started, Mangalore Refinery and Petrochemicals, that was, now it has been taken over by the ONGC, that was started at Mangalore by Birla. Then it was the 2000 when the Panipat Refinery of the Indian Oil Corporation Commission, Reliance Petroleum Refinery Commission, Numaligarh Refinery, in between other refineries also came into 2006. Indian Oil first linear alkyl benzene plant was commissioned at the IOC Vadodara. We discussed by discussing the LAB, that was the first plant based on this solid viscosity that was started. In between Mathura Refinery and other refinery also came into existence. Indian Oil first terethalix plant that was started by IOC Panipat Refinery. This is the 2006 ONGC entered in the petroleum refinery, by which I was telling about the acquiring the MRPL, and it was 2010, I think the now the 2011 you can say the HPCL Bhatinda Refinery with the collaboration of Mr. Mittal, that was there, BPCL Bina Refinery, that was at the in the Madhya Pradesh, that has been commissioned, that is again in the 2010. 2009 ONGC to start mega petrochemical complex at Dahej. So that was actually now the plant that is expected to be commissioned at Dahej, and where the Reliance petrochemical complex, that is there, earlier it was the IPCL, that is the 4 units after the coming of the Nagotha unit, it came at the Kandari. So now let us come to the just brief history of the oil and natural gas origin and the occurrence. You see, the oil and natural gas were formed 100 years ago from the prehistoric plant and animals. It is believed that the hydrocarbon formed by the thermal maturation of the organic matter buried deep in earth, and that took lot. This is just like the coal formation was there. So that took 100 years, 1000 years you can say, they for transferring from its original form to the oil. This is the typical refinery when we started first refinery in India, AOC, Assam Oil Company, that was the name, and 1923 you can see the condition, how the refinery that was started, and the unorganized way. After that, there are a lot of the changes that took place in Assam Oil Company also, some of the processes which were not there. Many of the refinery which were started earlier, they were not having the secondary many of the concepts, just like your catalytic reforming process, many of the refinery it was started later on, that was not part of the refinery in the earlier stage. So this is the how the old refinery, and now if you see, now a modern refinery, there it was the capacity 0.5 to 6, and here it is around plus 60 million tons capacity. Reliance, when the first Reliance refinery Jamnagar that was started, it was with the, they started with the thinking of the 18 million tons. Even at that time it was considered very high when it was compared with the capacity existing capacity of the refinery in India. So, that was the 18 to 30 and 30 to 60, that was the how the development of the Reliance took place, and they were able to develop petrochemical complexes, and at the same time they captured the market of the petroleum products. So, the crude oil and natural gas, which I was telling about the origin and occurrence, over the millions of years under extreme pressure and high temperature, these organic matters converted to hydrocarbon consisting of the oil and gas. Hydrocarbons are present in the variety of the forms, because this is the first stage: corrosion, asphalt, crude oil, natural gas, condensate and the coal. So, this is the how the even the what is there in all these will find C and H, carbon and hydrogen, and combination of, in case of the crude oil it may be the oil, it may be the oxygen, it may be nitrogen, sulfur compound which are inherently present, even in case of the coal sulfur compounds are present. So, this is the how the hydrocarbons that has been made, and it took thousands of years for making of these final material which is now available as a fuel, as a petroleum feedstock. Oil and gas production includes first thing that the exploration, that is one of the very important part of the crude oil production, because you see this is a lot of the investment is there on the exploration part by various multinational companies also, and in India it is the ONGC who was a major player in the exploration, and the whatever the availability of the oil and gas, that is only because of the coming of the ONGC. Otherwise, even if you see the slumbers, they are doing a lot of the exploration part and all, and especially the search of oil in the ocean. That is one of the important activity that is being done by the oil sector, because our sea that is rich in the resources, and which I told you that it is just like the churning of the ocean, which it was being done in the ancient time by our God. That is mentioned churning because to get the resources. So, that was the how the all the multinational companies and even ONGC, they are making lot of the efforts to get the oil from the various part of the sea. The underground taps of the oil and gas are called the reservoir, because there where you are getting the reservoir. Here also the reservoir, different type of the reservoir, and the drilling that create problems. Various types of the taps are structured tap, static graphic taps and the combination taps. Most reservoirs contain water also along with the oil and gas, and that is the separation of the oil, separation of the condensate from the gas, that is being done at the site of the process before it is being processed to the refinery. Earlier finding of the oil and gas, because as I told you the exploration of the oil, that is a very costly operation. So, the earlier finding of the oil and gas was matter of luck and hit and miss process. So, it was chance that you are getting oil. If you are getting oil, then you are everything you have got. If you are not getting, then a lot of the money that is. So, tools used for the oil and gas exploration are based and dependent on the gravity change, magnetic field change, time change and the electrical resistance. I am not going in detail, because some of the things that will be we have already the part of the NPTEL program, refinery, petroleum refinery, there it will be discussing more detail. Oil and gas exploration with the advent of the three-dimensional seismic technology, which is based on the sound wave, there has been lot of revolution in the oil and gas exploration. So, this identify the subsurface formation by reflection of sound. There has been much improvement in the identification of oil and gas tap and reservoir. Seismic technology significantly improves the method of estimating the oil and gas deposit, because you see this is the reason why oil that is very important. A whole economy of the world is dependent upon the availability of the oil, and this is the reason why the Middle East, all the countries, they are very rich, because the major portion of the oil resources are there in the Middle East. However, it has become now more challenging and complex because of the cost that is involved, because of the depth is involved, because even you see the here drilling of the oil and gas after exploration, next step is drilling onshore and offshore. Onshore drilling, and mostly it was the vertical drilling that was there. But now the another revolution that has taken place in case of the drilling, that is the horizontal drilling or the hydrofracturing, and because of that reason now we have been able to get the shale gas, because this whatever the changes or the availability of the shale gas in US or the Canada is there, only it is because of the horizontal drilling that has been possible now, more economical way of the producing the shale gas. This is the, I was telling that the oil and gas which is coming from the well, that is being processed at the site, this crude oil stabilization section, oil, water that is separated, oil that is going for the further after the desalting, it is going to refinery, gases that we are separating, that is the lift gas, and then the part of the gas if it is natural gas, slag catcher gas, condensate gas sweetening that we are doing. Condensate is the heavier fraction of the natural gas, and now because of the huge amount of the natural gas we are processing, lot of the condensate is available, and the fractionation of the condensate that will yield some of the important aromatics also that is present in the condensate. Gas hydration, these are all the process that is being done by the GAL or the ONGC at the site, and so the gas dehydration, because mostly it is the ONGC which are the even from during the initial stage LPG recovery from the natural gas, and then the NGL fractionation which I was telling for getting of the some of the important products, because they are containing heavier hydrocarbon. Composition of the oil, we are having the paraffinic base, intermediate base, naphthenic base, aromatic base, asphaltic base, heavy crude, sour crude, high TAN crude, opportunity crude, oil sand, because this is one of the another important, because very thick, highly thick, actually your crude oil, which now the lot of the work that is being done, especially in the Canada where it is available, and so to how to recover, because the distillation that is difficult, lot of the heavy residues are there. Similarly, in case of the opportunity crude, that is the pure more sour crude is available, heavier crude is there, and you see we have got the crude oil in Rajasthan which is rich, that is also high TAN crude, and so the processing definitely, because that will depend the type of the crude oil which the base, because depending upon the yield of the various product that will depend on the from the refinery. This will also play very important role in the total cost of them, because aromatic, so intermediate naphthenic base, if you are having the paraffinic, octane number that will be low, naphtha that has to be processed, aromatic base, if you are interested in the aromatic, from the reformate separation of the benzene, toluene, aromatic base, or the more heavier crude, that is the asphaltic base. These are the actually the impurities present in the crude oil, and this is the reason why the evaluation of crude oil, that is very important, because just to know this content that will be discussed in the lecture 2. This is the salt, chlorides of the sodium, magnesium, calcium, sulfur compound, H2S, mercaptan, thiopene, nitrogenous compound, and oxygen that is also actually in the form of the naphthenic acid, metals, sand, minerals, and water. These are the various constituents which are separated, and our basic objective in the refinery just to remove the impurity, but in spite of all those desalting and the pre-treatment that we are doing, some of the impurities that remains, and again those are removed during the various refinery operations. These are the primary process that we are doing in case of the refinery, separating of the crude into the various fractions, secondary processing residue from the primary process and upgrading them to the distillate, FCC as I told you the and the hydrocracker unit. Now you are having their integral part. Earlier, because the fluidization technology that was developed during the 1940s, and that was by UOP, the FCC came to existence in the refinery, and now it has become the, because it was the fixed bed technology that was being used for the catalytic cracking. It was fixed bed to fluidized bed. Then the residue application technology are there, bottom of the barrel application, that is the even residue fluid catalytic cracking unit, where the heavier fraction, deep catalytic units, DCC, all those things, that is the for upgrading of the residue which you are getting there. Then the another part in the case of the refinery is the finishing processes, the finishing of the product, because for the improvement of the product quality, and the one of the thing which I told you, the desulfurization, depending upon the which type of the crude you are processing, more sour, less sour, sweet crude. So depending upon that, you will have to go for the treatment of the various products before it is being marketed. These are the some of the separation process that is commonly used: distillation, absorption, extraction, crystallization and adsorption. Refining gas, these are the products which we are getting from the primary or the, you can say, the atmospheric distillation column. Again we will be discussing in detail while discussing about the crude oil distillation in the lecture 3. So these are the some of the product, that is the refining gases, liquid petroleum gas, gasoline or the naphtha, which I was telling, that is the because in some of the mills they are saying the light naphtha, medium naphtha, heavy naphtha. So kerosene, lamp oil, jet fuel, diesel oil and the domestic heating oils, heavy industrial fuels, that is just like bitumen, even the lubricating oil also this second from the we are getting from the vacuum distillation, light gas oil, that is going for the further cracking, heavy gas oil, it is also going for the cracking, reduced crude oil, light vacuum gas oil and the vacuum slop, vacuum residue, lubricating part also there, where the more paraffin are there, we are separating lubricating oil, or where in some of the refinery we are having the 3 refineries, they are having the separate your lube refinery, where they are processing the heavier crude for producing the lubricating oil. These are the process for the improvement of the properties: catalytic reforming, isomerization, alkylation, polymerization. Again all these processes in the various lectures we will be discussing. These are the conversion process, thermal process, catalytic process, and as I told you, our objective is to use each and every drop of the each and every barrel of the oil. So waste breaking, delayed coking and some advancement in the thermal cracking process that has taken place, catalytic process, that is the these are the some of the process: catalytic cracking, hydrocracking, steam reforming and some of the hydroconversion processes, finishing process, hydrotreatment and sweetening. This is from the environmental protection point of view: acid gas processing, stack gas processing, wastewater treatment processing. This is a typical refinery. Already I have discussed the products which you are getting. The crude oil, after desalting, it is going to atmospheric vacuum distillation column, and then the various fraction which you are getting from the atmospheric and the vacuum column, that is going for the further processing to have the more value added product. Means the suppose the octane number, you take the case of the naphtha, some of the portion of the naphtha that is having the low octane number. So how to improve? There are various processes, isomerization process there. Earlier it was the catalytic reforming. Now many of the units they have added the isomerization process also. That is for the improving the octane number. Like that, the various process, that is similarly the vacuum, the products which are getting from the vacuum, distillation comes, these are also the low value product, and so we are having the various processes. There just it was I was telling about the FCC in the hydrocracker, that is we are using these processes. Then these are typical a refinery configuration where the various processes that is involved, reformer, isomerization, hydrotreating for the removal of the sulfur, cracker, vacuum gas, fluid catalytic cracking, LPG and gas hydrotreating, coker, base breaker, all those units are there, and now a modern refinery that will look like this. These are the some of the crude which are using from the Middle East and this West Africa and the Far East. So from the various places that we are, because our major portion of the crude oil requirement, around you can say 70% is made through the imported crude. This is again the indigenous crude which we are having from the Assam, ONGC and other part of the country, and these are the some of the salient features, the characteristic of these, because the crude oil evaluation, that is very important. That is why we have kept one separate lecture on the crude oil evaluation. That will be discussed in the next lecture, that is the lecture 2. This is the another sources from where we are getting the North Gujarat crude, Bombay High crude, Nariman crude and the KG Basin Rawa crude. So, and this is the actually the characteristic of this crude, because if you see these characteristics, it is widely changing. So, whether it is sulfur or the API gravity, it is just reverse of the density API gravity. This is very commonly used in the characterization of the crude oil, and which again we are going to discuss in detail. This is the overall crude oil quality, and if you see the sulfur from 1.14, crude oil becoming more and more sour, because now the supply is more sour crude than the sweet crude. Similarly, API gravity, there is not variation, but changes is there in some of the places. Now we are having the this is 32 to 31. Similarly, the residue, that is increasing. So this is how the sulfur and the residue, this is just and the residue sulfur also, that is increasing. So these are the some of the changes that is we are facing because of the variation in the quality of the crude even in the refinery. Characteristic of the some of the crude, Indian crude, that is the API sulfur, 4-point distillate, and the high aromatics, Assam crude high aromatics and low Ankleshwar low diesel and middle distillate. This is the percentage of the 24%, 47% and API gravity. This is the characteristic of the North Gujarat, Bombay High, Nariman and KG Basin. These are the API sulfur, 4-point and distillation. Now the changing scenario, because you see I told you the refinery of the 50s and refinery of today, there is a lot of changes in the process condition. It is only just to there are two factors, only just to improve the productivity, at the same time just to meet the requirement of the market and the environmental standard. So that was the first phase when we are using the tetraethylate for the improving the octane number, completely phase out of the your lead, lower RVP, reed vapor pressure, lower benzene. Now there has been continuous decrease in the benzene content of the gasoline as per the Euro norm, lower olefin content, limited oxygen content, lower sulfur content. Low sulfur, low aromatics, high octane number, because the requirement of the octane number that has also changed, lower density, lower distillation end point. This is the Euro norms, and if you see the Euro norms, how the Euro norms, that now we are going for the 50 sulfur content. So how to maintain? Similarly, if you see the your octane number 88 to 91, even before that it was less than 88. So this is the how the change, benzene 3 to 1, now the 1% benzene, that is only, so this some portion we are losing, which was going to the gasoline part. So this is the how the changes in the gasoline that is taking place. Then the fuel norms, similarly in the case of the fuel norms for the sulfur content, now it is the only the 50 ppm. that is maximum allowable, and so this is the reason why we are having the number of desulfurization process in the refinery. This is how the consumption of the petroleum products, and which I told you in the beginning of the lecture on the why the importance of the petroleum in our life is there. This is for energy, for non-energy production. So major portion still it is going for the energy sector. So the energy means in the form of the LPG, gasoline, aviation turbine fuel, kerosene, high speed diesel oil, low speed diesel oil, fuel oil, various variety of the fuels that we are having. Then the naphtha that is being used by the fertilizer and the petrochemical complexes, used for engines and machines, waxes for food packaging and other uses, also the bitumen for airfields, highways, petroleum coke, metallurgical industry, and the solvents and others. These are the some of the broad application of the petroleum product. This is the some of the stream that will be again discussed while discussing the integration of the petroleum and refinery with the petrochemical company. And these are the streams which are available: fuel gas from the FCC, that is ethylene, propylene, that we are recovering from the ethylene, that is although the concentration of ethylene is less, so but that can be recovered and that can be utilized for making of the ethyl benzene. Propylene, that is already we are operating the some of the FCC also, and the propylene mode between C4, C5 gases are there that we are recovering. The LPG, C5 steam, light naphtha, heavy naphtha, kerosene, these are all actually the petrochemicals where we are using as a petrochemical feedstock, benzene, toluene, xylene, TEM as a your LPG. So this is the actually some of the emerging scenario. Just to conclude that the deregulation of the oil and gas sector in India, widening gap in the crude oil demand and the production, increasing heavy crude with the high TAN and sulfur crude, rising cost of the, because the cost of the crude oil it has become more volatile. Ever increasing crude oil prices, shrinking refinery margins, resulting in stringent product specification to meet the environmental standards, environmental regulation and stringent standards, which is changing time to time. It was 01 to 05, now we are going. So growth in the demand of light and middle distillate, because coming of the more and more vehicles, automobiles, and the trucks and other thing for the transportation. This is the concept of the future refinery, which we are going to, I am not going in detail, but the changes which is taking place in the refinery in the future for integrating for you, that may be the petrochemical refinery, biorefinery, biofuel, which already discussed, how the ethanol 5 to 10% of the ethanol that can be blended, or from the biomass we can have the alcohol, or the biomass gasification we can go for the methanol, natural gas refinery based on the natural gas, the various product that will be get, especially through the GTL technology. And now we are talking about the zero gasoline refinery, because the concept earlier it was the objective of the refinery was to have the gasoline and diesel. Now we are talking about the zero gasoline recovery. So these are the some of the development that is taking place in the refinery, just to have the more and more economy, just to utilize each and every barrel of the oil, and to utilize all the byproduct from the refinery for more value added product.